going to look at 3 of the problems from Lucy's task to make sure we understand how to set up an equation. Because really and truly, solving equations is all well and good, but if you don't know how to set them up, you don't have any sort of real world connection to it. So the first one is our favorite, and it's about a rectangle. So the problem says a rectangle is 12 meters longer than it is wide. Its perimeter is 68 meters. Find its length and width. I don't know about you, but once they start talking about shapes, I like a picture. So I'm going to draw a picture of my rectangle. It's not a pretty rectangle. It's got a weird corner. I have issues. All right, so I know that my perimeter, because they told me, is 68 meters. Do I know what my width is?
No.
If I don't know, it's an unknown. And what do we do with an unknown? We do a variable. Now some of you are saying x, and that is fine to use x, but I'm going to use w. Why? It stands for width. And a lot of times that helps me so that I don't have to come over here and write that. You can still write it when you identify your variables. One of the biggest mistakes I see is students assign things letters and they don't remember what they mean, and then they get the question wrong anyway. So after we do that, then we want to look at what else it said. It said it's 12 meters longer than it is wide. How would I show my length then?
12 plus W.
Is it going to be L plus? Is it going to be... We could just do L, but then I have 2 variables, and I don't know how to solve that. But if I can relate the 2 variables and they gave me something I can, is it going to be 12W or 12 plus W? 12 plus W, because it said the length is whatever your width is, plus another 12 meters. Now, how would I find perimeter? I can add all the sides together. So is that just going to be 12 plus W plus W? Plus W plus 12 plus W equals what? 68, right? That is my perimeter. Now, some of you were doing it a different way, which is good. You remembered that the formula for perimeter, which is a good thing to know, is 2L plus 2W. And so you just substituted each in there. Okay? Either way is fine because you're going to get the same thing. Right here you're going to get 4W plus 24 equals 68. And from there you know how to solve the equation. Since it's on video, y'all are lucky. I will go ahead and finish it out for you just to make sure. What would I do next? Minus 24 on each side. And that's going to give me 4W equals? I would say 44. Right? And then what would my very, very last step be? Now, what did I just find? I used the division property of equality, but what did I just find? So it asked for both. So the width is 11. What would the length be? 23, right? 11 plus 12. And this would be your final answer, except we want to say meters, because they were very specific. The rectangle problems are almost always on standard assessments. Almost always. You know, they alternate around, but it's a go-to problem. Does that make sense? So you'll see it at least on CDAs or my tests and things like that. Let's go to number 5 about consecutive integers. And I believe this is the class we talked about this just a bit. But if it's not, that's okay. I had several students, and I wasn't upset with them, but I want to talk about a strategy who asked me what a consecutive integer is. If you don't know, and I don't have it on notes, and I did not have that on notes for you, what's the best thing to do on a simple question like that? Google it. You can try context clues. Some of you might have gotten it by that way. That's actually a really good strategy. But if you're at home doing homework and you're like, I don't know what a consecutive integer is, that's not a good reason not to do the problem. If context clues don't give it to you, it'll take you 10 seconds to Google. Go to Siri. Hey, girl, what are consecutive integers? And she will tell you. For those of you who did look it up, explain to me, what is a consecutive integer? Go ahead, Ollie.
It's like a number that comes after.
Right. It's a number that comes in order, whole numbers, right? So no decimals, no fractions. So this is your favorite type of word problem already. How many of these consecutive integers did they say we had? 3. So I'm going to start by doing a little table. I have a first number, I have a second number, and I have a third number. Do I know what my first number is? So if it's unknown, what do I do? x. Or you could have used an n, but the letter doesn't matter. So I'm going to come over here and say x is my first number. What is my second number that have to be if my first number is x? Does it have to be a whole different variable? X plus 2 or x plus 1?
Oh, X plus 1.
X plus 1, right? Because if this number were 5, wouldn't this one have to be 6? We said they're consecutive. So if this is x plus 1, what does my third number have to be? X plus 2. Now, it said the sum of all three numbers is 171. What does sum mean? The answer to what kind of problem? Addition. So, what should I do then with these three numbers?
Make an equation.
Make an equation, and what is that equation going to look like?
X plus parentheses X plus 1 in parentheses plus parentheses X plus 2 in parentheses.
Equals what?
171.
171. Now, someone said the parentheses weren't needed. On this particular one, you're correct. They weren't needed. You didn't have to do them. If it was subtraction, you would have to. But for addition, we don't have to. It's not a bad habit, just depending on how good you are at these, to put the parentheses. But I do agree with you. They're not necessary on this problem. Then I'm going to combine my like terms. How many x's do I have?
3.
What other number do I have over here? 2 and 1. So that becomes? So 3x plus 3 equals 171. What do I do next? All right. So 3x then equals? And divide each side by 3. So what does x equal? So my three numbers are what then?
56, 57, 58.
And that's the actual answer, right, that they were asking for. So that's how we do. These consecutive ones are another go-to problem. And by a go-to problem, I mean I don't see you not having this type of problem on a unit test. Certainly, hint, hint, I would expect a quiz, hint, hint, next class, hint, hint, to ask you, hint, hint, about the two types of problems we've seen, including the third I'm about to show you, hint, hint. If I were a student, hint, hint, who was worried, a hint, hint, about the next quiz, hint, hint, I would probably make sure I could do these three types of problems. Let's look at the last one, and this is my personal favorite type of problem. You might have gotten a clue there, you might not have. All right. So, again, the way I set them up may not be the way you set them up. They're the way I take notes. So, I'm just giving you an idea, especially if you're not getting them right. When you're lost, when you start taking notes, sometimes it'll just become obvious to you. All right? So right here, it says there are 3 exams in a marking period. So again, I'm going to just do a little quick first exam, second exam, and third exam. All right? A student received a grade of 75 on the first one, 81 on the second one. Do we know what they got on the third one? And if it's unknown, we assign it a variable. And on this one, I probably would just do an x, right? All right. Now, what I want eventually, and see, I do like a little thing over here. What I want is the 3 average to give me an 80. That's what I want it to happen. I need to know what this can be. So how am I going to set up this to solve this? Go ahead, start us.
So you want to set an equation, and you're going to put 75 plus 81 plus x over 3.
Excellent. I'm going to stop her right there because it was perfect. And someone explained to me, she said we're going to do 75 plus 81 plus x divided by 3. Explain to me, I already know she knows where she got that at.
The 3 is because you're averaging.
I'm averaging them. And whenever we average, we add up all of our data and divide by the number we have. We just put an x there because we don't have that one. Now, I am going to say this. We said equation. Is this one actually an equation?
No.
It's actually going to be an inequality, right? Because I wanted to get at least an 80. So is this going to be a less than or equal to sign or a greater than or equal to sign? I'm confused. You are all telling me that it should be greater than or equal to, but I can see right here it says no less than. Less than is the other way. So why did I do a greater than?
Because you can't get less
So it's important that we understand what's going on. Like a lot of you had that intuition, but some of you may not. Always look and see if what you're saying makes sense. What you're saying is you wanted your average to be bigger than 80, right? It's okay to go back to kindergarten. You wanted this alligator to eat more over here than over here. Did you not? Yes. So always make sure what you've written makes sense to the problem. Because sometimes there'll be, that no is what threw it. If it had just said less than, we would have been in a whole different thing, right? But they put that no in front of it and negated it. So we actually are using the greater than symbol. And now what would I do to solve this inequality?
Multiply 3.
Multiply each side by 3, and that's going to give me, and this came up a lot. Some people are multiplying twice. When I have a fraction and I multiply by 3 over 1, those 3's cross cancel. That was the whole reason I did it, was to get rid of that fraction. Don't multiply again by 3, or you've not applied the property correctly. So that means I can just rewrite this as 75 plus 81 plus x is greater than or equal to 240. Now what? Yeah, let's go ahead and add that 75 and 81. That's annoying me too. Good call. 156 plus x, which is called combining like terms, which is what a couple of you were saying, is 240. What would my last step be? Subtract 156 and x is greater than or equal to what?
54.
So let me ask you then, does that mean 87 is a possible answer here? Sure it is. Is 93 a possible answer? Now let's talk about real world then. According to this, and this would be what you would answer on a quiz or test, no problem. But let's go real world for just a second. Is there a problem with this just saying it's bigger than 84? If you were someone to say analyze and say what is the problem? Is there a problem that you can think of that someone didn't account for that needs to be taken into consideration? If you were to really answer this fully? You're saying this can be any number bigger than 84, and I'm saying there is kind of a problem with that. What's the problem? It would average out, but what? Think about what the issue is. Think about the real world problem. I have 3 exams here, and you're saying it can be anything bigger than 84. It can't be bigger than 100, right? Unless there's extra credit. So even though we're saying it can be bigger than 84, in reality, we're really saying it's between 84 and 100, right? That's one of those things where always think about the real world application. Yes, ma'am.